Okay, my friends, here it is. The video that is going to explain to you exactly how to make soil blocks. And it's going to explain why soil blocks will make you the healthiest transplants ever, potentially. So I'm going to say some things about it, and then I'll take you in the basement and show you exactly how to make it. Because it is March 11th here in Zone 5B 6A, Northern Indiana, and I am just now, yesterday and today, starting my seeds. Besides onions and ginger and sweet potatoes, I've already started those weeks ago. But all the rest, tomatoes, peppers, all that kind of stuff, just now and anytime within the next 2 weeks. It's always better to err on the side of starting a little bit too late than than too early, because you want the plants to spend as little time as possible in the artificial environment. It always helps them when they go outside, okay, to transition easier. Here is why the soil blocks will make you some of the healthiest transplants possible. Because typically we will start our plants in something like this. And if you're a beginner, a total beginner, I still recommend the solo cup method. As you saw in the video I made, the beginner method of starting seeds. It works very good. But what can happen is that when the seed sprouts in here, when the seed sprouts, it wants to set its roots out and to get a feel for the environment. And that determines to the plant how big it can get. It determines its potential or what it thinks that its environment is like. And so what happens when we plant in things like this is that the roots will sprout and it will go out. And once it hits the side of here, there will have nowhere to go. And so it will keep winding around the side. And it'll wind around and around the side, and it thinks that that's all the more root space that it has. And what happens very, very often is that you will then go to plant that out, and when you pull out the plant, you will see that the roots are all wrapped around the bottom, just like that. We call that root bound. And so when you go to plant that out, the plant never really fully recovers from that. And a lot of times, you can go towards the end of the season, pull up the root, and the root mass is all still right there. It never really spread out because that initial root set told it that its life's going to be confined to this tiny little container. Now, one of the beautiful things about soil blocks is that when a root grows out of here and it senses air, then the root never wants to grow in just thin air. And so it will say, okay, so we've reached some kind of surface. And so it will direct it back down. And we call this air pruning. It will not grow these roots out any further. It will instead grow more vigorously in the space inside of the soil block. It will grow more nodes and a denser, more robust root system all inside this block, because it's not just going to send roots out into thin air. And so we call that air pruning. And that is very beneficial when you go to then plant your seeds, the transplants outside. They will grow right away. They will take off. They'll say, okay, boom, now's the time that we can grow big and wide. As opposed to something that has been root bound in a plastic container for a long time. It's going to take a long time before it can really recover. It can, but I'm just saying in general, you'll get a lot healthier transplants from soil blocks. And it provides for so much more airflow, which overwatering and not enough air are the two of the biggest mistakes in beginner gardening. Seed starting. And so these will hold on to water for a long time. And I'll see people with transplants that are just sopping wet. And I pull the thing out. They'll say, okay, what's the problem with my transplant? It's all sickly looking. And I'll pull it out and I'll see just the roots are all rotted. It's all sopping wet. That's because there's no air really getting into here, okay? But here, plenty of airflow. So it's very difficult to overwater these. And you'll get plenty of air around the sides. And so for that reason, molds and mildews and all that gnarly stuff, far less likely with soil blocks. And of course, another advantage is it goes without saying that we don't have to utilize the plastic, so that your garden doesn't have these all over the place. No matter how careful you are, a lot of times these will be all over the place. With these, once you plant them, they just disappear. There is nothing. So the biggest question I get about soil blocks, guys, is what is the appropriate medium that I can use? Everyone thinks they got to make some special blend because you'll see online, you got to add certain parts of this and parts of that. And that's true. If you've got a secret soil block mixture, go ahead and use that if you know it works for you. But here's the secret, guys. You can use soil from the store. You can just use bagged soil, but you have to sieve it first, and I'll show you how to do it downstairs. But you can go to the store, get you a bag of soil, organic soil, and which is actually soilless growing medium. So any of the I like the Fox Farm, like the Happy Frog or the Ocean Floor, something like that. Those are very good. The Fox Farm brands of soil, very good. Got compost in them, lots of nutrients for the plants and organic. But if you can't find the Fox Farm, then you can just get virtually any of them. The peat-based ones, you can use those too, but you have to sieve them, all right? Next thing you have to get, so just go and get you the bag of soil and that will work. Next thing, the only actual implement you have to get is this device. And I think it's only this one company makes them and they're from England. And I'll put a link in the description to them. I'm not affiliated with them, but I've had these for years. They still look brand new. They work awesome. So yeah, let us get into it. Let's go in the basement. I'll show you guys how to do this. Okay, step one is to make a sieve of some kind. This here is 1/4-inch wire mesh, and we are going to put the soil on top of that, and then we're going to sift it out. We're going to push it all through the sieve like that, because it's these big particles of bark and of compost and of other stuff that is going to make the soil blocks kind of crumble and fall apart. So we don't want this in there. So we want it to look like this. Here's the finished product, nice and soft and fluffy, and no big chunks or rocks or anything like that. Next, we want to put enough for a tray into a separate tote like this, and then we're going to pre-saturate it. Now, watering is the most important thing when it comes to soil blocks, next to using fine soil. And so you want to mix it all together, and you want it so that when you squeeze it like this, numerous water drops come out like this. But you don't want it this wet here so that it looks like muck. And so when you squeeze it, just a river of water and stuff comes out. That's too wet, and that will make it harden like clay. So we don't want it that wet. But likewise, we don't want it this dry right here, like you see, where it just crumbles in our hand, and when we squeeze it, 0 droplets come out. That's way too dry. So we want it to be like this right here, where it is just going to a few drops coming out. And next step is we're going to take our pre-moistened soil and then we're going to pack it into the device. Now we're going to press down with only light to moderate pressure. We're not packing it in there super tight, but just enough till it's all in there. And then when we put it into the tray, you see we're going to press down like this. We'll see a little bit of water come out, and then we're going to pull up on the device and gently tilt it to the side. And I like to dunk it into water between each time to keep it from sticking. Once we get the full tray, we're going to plant our seeds. Today we're going to do the poblano pepper and the Ivarski pepper, and those are ones both that I'm going to smoke and powderize. So I like to put 1 or oftentimes 2 seeds into each hole just to make sure each one's viable. And then I'm going to put some soil on top like this. And after the soil goes on, we're going to gently tamp it down so that the seed is in direct good contact with the soil. And then we're going to add a little bit more water so that your end product looks like this. Everything is nice and moist and in its place. And then we're going to put it into the seed starting place. This is the grow tent, and we're using a heat mat. And when you use a heat mat, you want to use a thermostat and make sure you plug the regulator into the soil. And then guys, always remember to label your seedlings. I know you think you will remember, but you will not. You will forget if you don't label. So there you go, my friends. Now you know how to make the soil blocks. If you feel like you gained something from this video, give it a thumbs up. Also, leave a comment. First thing that comes to mind, just share your thoughts. Also, check out the links in the description, all kinds of good stuff. And I will direct you to this video here. If you have not done so already, then make sure that you make this microbial solution and apply it 5 times prior to planting.